There's a kind of peace you expect when you move into a small, gated neighborhood. A few nosy neighbors, sure, but mostly just quiet streets and occasional barbecue invite. That's what I thought I was getting when I bought the last house at the end of Hickory Lane. A fixer-upper with a cracked driveway, a stubborn oak tree out front, but it was mine. Every evening I'd sit on the porch, watch the sunset bleed over the rooftops, and wonder if I'd finally found the kind of place you could plant roots in. Then one afternoon, it all started to unravel. So fast, I didn't even see it coming. Two men I'd never met rolled up in a golf cart marked neighborhood compliance. Cheap badges clipped to their polos, acting like they were the real deal. Before I could even finish my coffee, they were on my lawn, barking orders, shoving around their fake authority like they owned the street. "Violation," one of them hollered, his face red, finger jabbing at my front yard. This whole setup's illegal. I didn't even know what they were talking about. But what happened next, what they did next, would set off a chain reaction they never could have prepared for. If you're already getting heated just hearing this, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because trust me, it's about to get worse. Way worse. At first, I thought it was a prank, some kind of ridiculous neighborhood stunt. But the way they stomped around, waving clipboards and threatening citations, made it real fast. One of them, a squat guy with a greasy mustache, started snapping photos of my porch, muttering about unauthorized modifications. The other one, a tall, twitchy type, hovered near the driveway, scribbling nonsense onto a cheap notepad. I stepped down off the porch, keeping my voice calm. "You want to tell me what this is about?" I asked. The tall one squared up like he was expecting a fight. "You're in violation of HOA Code 14B, he barked, rattling off some rule I'd never heard of. "Illegal decorations, unapproved fencing. Could be a fine up to $1,000. Maybe more." I blinked. There were no decorations, no fencing, just a porch swing and a cracked sidewalk. Before I could say another word, the short one got right up in my face, way too close, and shoved a crumpled slip of paper against my chest. "Sign it," he ordered. "Acknowledge the violations, or we escalate." His breath smelled like stale coffee and cigarettes. I didn't move. I didn't sign. That's when the shove came, a sharp jab to my shoulder, harder than it needed to be. "Comply or be removed," the tall one said, his voice low, threatening. For a second, I stood there, stunned that they actually touched me. But inside, something shifted. Not fear, something hotter, slower. A simmering anger I hadn't felt in a long time. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Not yet. Not today. But they would. Oh, they would. I backed up a step, still keeping my cool, even though my heart was hammering. "You boys finished?" I asked, real slow, real even. The short one scoffed and flicked the paper at my feet like I was trash. "You're lucky we don't call the sheriff right now," he sneered. "Interfering with neighborhood compliance. Serious offense." I watched them swagger back to their little golf cart, high on their fake authority, heads held high like they had just won some kind of battle. It would have been funny if it wasn't so insulting. See, what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly have guessed, is that less than a year ago, I had worn a real badge, a real uniform. 15 years in law enforcement. I knew every actual regulation, every real protocol, and more importantly, I knew exactly what impersonating an officer could cost them. Watching them buzz away down the street, laughing like idiots, I made a decision right then and there. I wasn't going to let this slide. Not just for me. Because if they were bold enough to shove me around, they'd do worse to someone else. Maybe someone who couldn't fight back. I stepped inside, grabbed my old badge case from the drawer where I'd put it after retirement, and ran my thumb over the cool metal. I wasn't coming back as some angry neighbor yelling at the HOA. No, I was coming back properly. Full uniform. Full force. And when I did, their little world, every ounce of fake power they thought they had, was going to crumble at their feet. They want to play cop? I was about to show them what happens when you mess with the real thing. I didn't rush it. If there's one thing experience teaches you, it's that the best takedowns happen when you stay patient. Let them hang themselves with their own rope first. I spent the evening gathering everything I needed. My old academy-issued uniform, still neatly packed away. The badge, polished till it gleamed. Even my departmental ID, long expired but still very real. I wasn't planning to flash it around. I wasn't impersonating anyone. I was someone. I had the papers to prove it if they pushed. Early the next morning, before the neighborhood really woke up, I got dressed. Buttoned the shirt, secured the belt, laced up the boots. It felt strange and familiar all at once, like stepping into an old life I hadn't realized I missed. As I checked my reflection one last time, everything crisp, professional, undeniable, I caught myself smiling, not out of vanity, out of certainty. Today was going to be a reckoning. Around 9 o'clock, when the coffee cups started hitting porches and the dog walkers came out in force, I walked out my front door in full uniform, badge clipped to my chest, the works. Heads turned. Whispers floated through the air. Good. Let them see. I made my way toward the HOA office, just a small building tucked near the pool area, and sure enough, parked outside was that same cheap golf cart, and those same two fake officers, leaning against it, laughing about something. When they spotted me, their faces went sheet white. The tall one straightened so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet. The short one fumbled with his clipboard like it might shield him. I kept walking, slow and steady, right toward them, giving them just enough time to realize they had seriously screwed up. Neither of them spoke right away. You could almost hear the gears grinding in their heads, trying to figure out how they'd gone from kings of block to two kids caught stealing candy. I stopped a few feet in front of them, hands resting easy on my belt, letting the silence stretch. The short one cracked first. W didn't mean anything by it, sir, he stammered, voice cracking like a teenager's. It's just compliance patrol, volunteer basis, nothing official. The tall one elbowed him, trying to shut him up, but it was too late. I tilted my head slightly. Volunteer basis, huh? I said, slow and easy, like I was giving them room to dig their own grave. And what gives volunteers the right to put hands on residents? Issue fake citations? Threaten fines? They looked at each other, panicked, sweaty. W, we were just following instructions, the tall one blurted. We were told it was legal, management said so. There it was, the crack. I pressed. Management. I echoed, letting the word hang there. You mean the HOA president? They both nodded so fast, it was almost comical. I could barely hide the disgust curling in my gut. Turns out, these two weren't some random rogue act. They were foot soldiers and scam, one a lot bigger than bad attitudes and clipboard threats. The HOA president had been running a racket. Fake citations, made up compliance fees, threats of legal action, all funneled through a private account she conveniently managed. I didn't have all the details yet, but I didn't need to not to know the game was up, and I wasn't just planning to end it. I was planning to bury it so deep the next HOA meeting would be held in the ashes. Word traveled faster than wildfire once the neighbors caught sight of me standing there. Full uniform, two fake cops squirming under my stare. People peeked out from behind curtains. Some even wandered out, pretending to check their mail, but it was clear they were watching. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't need to. You two are going to sit tight, I said, my voice low, steady. And you're going to explain everything to everyone. Before they could argue, I pulled out my phone and dialed the real non-emergency police line. I wasn't playing games. I wanted a record, a paper trail, so thick even the HOA president couldn't wriggle out. While we waited, the short one tried to plead. Please, we didn't know it was illegal. We thought it was just part of the job. His voice cracked again, and this time I almost pitted him. Almost. 5 minutes later, a cruiser rolled up. Two real officers stepped out, looking sharp, professional. The relief on the fake cops' faces was almost funny, until it wasn't. The real officers took one look at me, recognized me, and their whole posture changed. Good to see you, sir, one said quietly, flashing me a knowing nod. Then they turned their full attention to the imposters, who suddenly looked like they wanted the earth to swallow them whole. As the cops started questioning them, neighbors gathered nearby in little clusters. Whispers grew louder. Fingers pointed. I caught sight of Mrs. Callahan, who once got fined $500 for having the wrong color mailbox, standing with her arms crossed, her jaw tight. This wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't even just about the fake cops. It was about a neighborhood waking up, realizing they'd been played, and they were ready for a reckoning. It didn't take long for the real story to start unraveling. The officers separated the two fake cops, questioning them hard, and just like that, cracks opened wide. One of them, desperate to save his own skin, blurted out loud enough for half the block to hear. It was Lisa's idea. She said we get bonuses for every citation we wrote. Lisa, our HOA president, the woman who loved giving smug speeches about community standards and keeping property values high. The woman who, according to these two idiots, had been running a racket under the HOA's nose for nearly 2 years, collecting cash from violations, pocketing it through fake fees and compliance fines nobody ever audited. I caught Mrs. Callahan's eye across the crowd. Her mouth tightened into a thin line. She wasn't the only one thinking about every ridiculous fine they'd paid, every threat letter they'd received. That afternoon, something shifted. We weren't just angry. We were united. A neighbor I barely knew, Mr. Jacobs, marched right up to me. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice rough. I didn't hesitate. "We make it official," I said. "Petition to audit the HOA. Full transparency. Force a vote to remove her. And if that doesn't work, we take it higher legal action." Whispers of agreement rippled through the crowd. By the time the officers had loaded the two imposters into the cruiser and pulled away, half the block was buzzing with energy. Clipboards appeared. Pens were passed around. Mrs. Callahan, bless her, even set up a folding table right there on the sidewalk. In less than an hour, we had over 50 signatures. And the best part? Lisa didn't even know yet. She was still sitting up in her ivory tower, clueless that the people she thought she ruled were coming straight for her. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for that Thursday night, a little monthly gathering that usually dragged on with talk about mulch choices and driveway widths. But this time, the air was electric before the clock even hit 6. People showed up early. Lots of people. Folks who hadn't bothered in years. They weren't here for landscaping updates. They were here for blood. I came too, still in full uniform, no longer needing to say a word. My presence alone said enough. When Lisa breezed into the clubhouse, heels clicking on the tile, she froze for half a second, caught sight of the crowd, caught sight of me. Then she smiled, that smug, syrupy smile she wore like armor. "Good evening, everyone," she chirped, as if the walls weren't about to fall in. "Let's get started." She barely made it to the first agenda item before Mrs. Callahan stood up, voice cutting through the room like a blade. "We demand an audit," she said, clear and sharp. "Full financial transparency. Effective immediately." Lisa blinked, thrown off her script. "An audit?" she stammered, trying to recover. "Is that really necessary?" "It's not a request," another neighbor barked from the back. Clipboards started waving in the air. Signed petition stacked thick enough to flatten her whole operation. And then I stepped forward. Calm, unshakable. I placed a sealed envelope on the table in front of her, a formal complaint filed with the state's attorney general's office. Her face drained of color. She fumbled to respond, but every word caught in her throat. She wasn't in charge anymore. The people she thought she controlled, the people she'd bullied, fined, threatened, they were awake now. And they weren't going back to sleep. The walls she'd built around herself were crumbling piece by piece, and we were just getting started. Lisa didn't even make it to the end of the meeting. By the time the vote came up, an emergency vote to remove her from office, she was already halfway out the door, clutching her bag like it might shield her from the judgment thick in the air. The vote wasn't close. 93% in favor of immediate removal. By the time we left the clubhouse, the neighborhood had started to buzz in a different way. Not with fear, not with whispered complaints, but with something sharper, cleaner. Relief. Pride. A few people lingered around the sidewalks, chatting in clusters like neighbors do when they realize they're actually stronger together than apart. Mrs. Callahan caught up to me outside, a tired but genuine smile pulling at her mouth. "You know," she said, "for a minute there, I really thought there was nothing we could do. I shook my head. There's always something you can do. You just gotta be willing to stand up first. Her eyes got a little misty, and she squeezed my arm in a way that said more than words ever could. Over the next few weeks, everything changed. The HOA board was gutted and rebuilt from the ground up. Financial audits uncovered tens of thousands of dollars that Lisa had siphoned off into fake administrative fees. Civil charges were filed. People who'd been steamrolled by the old system got their fines refunded and their dignity restored. And the fake cops? Their little volunteer compliance program disappeared overnight. Turns out, playing dress-up doesn't end well when the real thing shows up on your doorstep. Life on Hickory Lane finally started feeling like what was always supposed to be quiet, neighborly, real. And for the first time since I'd moved there, it actually felt like home. It's funny how a neighborhood can shift overnight. Not just the politics or the leadership, but the feeling in the air. The weight that used to hang over our little street, the tension you didn't realize you were carrying until it lifted, was gone, replaced by something better, warmer. One evening, a few weeks after the dust had settled, I sat back on my porch swing with a cold drink in hand, watching kids ride their bikes up and down the sidewalks, watching Mr. Jacobs plant a new oak tree where an old, cracked sign used to stand, watching Mrs. Callahan laugh for what felt like the first time in years. For the first time in a long time, there was no clipboard-wielding bully lurking around the corner, no fake citations tucked into mailboxes, no golf carts prowling like buzzards looking for a fight. Just neighbors, just people, the way it's supposed to be. I didn't need the uniform anymore. Didn't need to remind anyone who I was or what I had done. The people here knew. They remembered, not just me, but themselves, what we stood up for. What we reclaimed. Every now and then, someone would nod at me a little longer than usual. A quiet thank you, spoken without words. And honestly, that was enough. I didn't take down Lisa to be a hero. I didn't call the cops to get applause. I did it because sometimes doing the right thing means stepping into the storm, standing tall when it's easier to stay quiet. Sometimes it just takes one person to remind everyone else. This is ours. This is home. And no one, not even a power-hungry bully dressed in fake authority, gets to take that away.